the being of coaching and the doing of coaching. I think we're going to lean a little bit more towards the being of coaching, which is the mindset that you might like to come in with. And for all the skeptics out there, and I'm sure there must be some, we will be sharing a little bit of data so that you can see where the impetus of coaching is coming in from. So if it's a buzzword today, why are organizations spending so much time and effort to bring coaching and a coaching culture into their systems? So while coaching is one of the leadership styles that we look at, a quick look at something that you probably already know. I've got 4 leadership styles up there for all of us to look at. We all recognize the autocratic leader. Here's the leader who's the boss. They're in charge. They make the decisions, and all the people in their team are expected to be the executors of their command, and they ensure that what they say goes. And in terms of the balance of power, you will find that the autocratic leader holds the power within themselves. We also might be familiar with a democratic leader, and here's a leader who will consider, will ask, will take input from the team and will weigh in, will allow the team members to weigh in on whatever is the decision that's being taken. The leader themselves holds the right to make the ultimate decision. The third kind of leadership style is the laissez-faire leadership style. And what we find over here is that the power is very diffused between the team members as well as the leader. It's almost as though the team members have been hired to do their job. They must be very good at what they do, but they don't necessarily get too much direction or too much input from their managers, and they're more or less left to be who they want to be or do what they want to do. So the power in this case is very, very diffused. If we looked at coaching as a leadership style, you'll find that in coaching, there is more of an enablement. Coaching-oriented leaders are sharing the power between them as well as their team members, and both are equally allowed to bring in their own suggestions and their way of acting out on a challenge or a problem. So we find that in coaching, what you will have is combined power between the leader as well as their team members. And I'm sure at some time or another, you would have seen all of these 4 leadership styles being played out with people who are managers or leaders around you. So we'd like you to tell us through a very quick poll, when you observe leadership styles around you, right? We're not asking about you right now. We're asking when you look at managers around you, when you watch them lead their teams, you've experienced managers yourselves, what is the most predominant style that you have noticed in those leaders? So is it autocratic? Is it democratic? Is it laissez-faire? Or is it coaching? So Shubhu, can we have the poll up?
It's up the moment you came to the slide.
All right. So go ahead. Please do share your answers, and let's have a look. You can submit after you've clicked on the option that you notice.
We already have 33 responses. 34, 37. Good, fast response. I think you've got a wonderful audience. And that's an interesting data. We are done with 40, 41 out of 51.
So very quickly, if you've not already weighed in with what is the style you've predominantly seen around you, we're going to just close the poll now and share the results with everybody.
Closed. You can see the results.
So the only person who can't see the results is me. So go ahead, Shubhu, and
okay. So the result, is quite interesting. 45% autocratic, 45% democratic, and there's real democracy between autocracy and democracy here. And laissez-faire 7% and coaching 2%.
Wow.
That shows why we wanted to have the session. Yeah, Ushi,
Right.
you can take off.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, while we know that coaching is a very effective leadership style, it's even a little sad that when we actually experience leaders around us, that we find that it's not a style that is very often practiced. And in fact, if we were to look at the data that is available to us and we asked managers, how effective are you in applying coaching as a leadership style, they themselves would rate themselves at the 78th percentile. Whereas if you ask their teams, how effective is your manager in using coaching as a leadership style, the team members would rate their manager at the 38th percentile. So quite a big gap also between what managers think is their effectiveness in using coaching and what the team members observe as their effectiveness in using coaching. And it's critical actually that we look at the manager. We have data from last year from Gallup's survey, and they have been around for 30 plus years. And in a nutshell, what does their data say? That employee engagement and employee retention, 70% of the variance in teams is really due to the manager alone. So if you have an effective manager, you have attrition, engagement, performance all going up. And if a manager is not able to meet the requirements of these styles, you'll have them, all of these parameters going down. And probably more so now, because we find that the nature of the workforce itself has changed. People who are coming into work today versus people who were coming in the 1950s. You know, so in the 1950s, you would have somebody coming into work because they wanted to earn their money. They earned their money, they had a manager, they had an annual review conversation, and they went back home. And there were many more things that gave them connectedness. There were many more things that gave them joy. There were many more things that gave them satisfaction in a general way. Today, when we see the workforce, and I'm sure this is true for all of us too, work has much more meaning. It's a far deeper need that work is satisfying. It needs to be something that I enjoy. Work needs to be something where I have a chance to grow, where I have a chance to develop. I would like my organization to invest in me. And as we see employees mature, we see that they would really like to touch on their purpose and come into work so that they can really fulfill what they consider is their lives or their career goal. So it's moved away from being just about an annual review and the salary check you take home. And it's become much more about connectedness, about purpose, and about joy. And really, this is where coaching comes in, because it is one of the ways that leaders can unlock and can tap into the potential. And as data will show us, that managers who are able to use coaching kind of a style are able to get much more from their workforce. And this means that managers need to change a little bit. They need to change in their beliefs. They need to change a little bit in the amount of trust that they can place in their team members. They need to change a little bit in the presence that they bring into any conversation which they're having with their team members. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, that what is the shift and what is the change that will enable managers to get much more out of their teams and give the conversations that they're having with their teams a much more coaching orientation. So what we're looking at as the power of coaching is employees going the extra mile. You'll find, what does this graph show us? That the leader's effectiveness is determining how much stretch, especially in times of change, would you find from your team members. So if you want more stretch, especially at times of change, what you really need to do is adopt a much more natural style of coaching than you might be doing right now. There is a direct correlation between high-performing organizations and the coaching culture that they are able to demonstrate. And this is probably one of the reasons why we find that many organizations are talking about coaching at all levels. It could be coaching the senior most leaders, and that's usually one-on-one. They might be talking about coaching teams for the next level of leaders, or they might be equipping their people managers to become more effective coaches when they are in themselves dealing with their teams. So there is a very direct and strong correlation between the performance of organizations and the employee output. Another piece of data that's really interesting, and this is a study by Zenger and Forkman published in the Forbes magazine in 2015, that when managers are using coaching as a leadership style, you're actually seeing 5 areas that get very directly impacted. You're seeing the data here for supervisor performance, but Zenger and Forkman also found that you see greater employee productivity. You see that employee engagement is much higher. You see that employees are retained much better. So if a manager has an effective style of leadership, which is coaching, then only 22% of those team members are thinking about leaving the organization, versus a very high 60% if the managers are not so good at deploying coaching as a leadership style. You also see coaching impacting the development of employees, and you see coaching increasing the engagement overall for the organization. So here really is very real data, whether it's employee performance, organizational performance, employee retention, supervisor performance, all are impacted very positively and significantly if we have leaders following a style which is coaching as a leadership style. Now, now the question is on you. So you're a manager and your team member comes to you and asks you, here boss, I have a real challenge. It's something you really should know about, and you realize, yes, this is important, this is serious. We really need to be informed about this at an organization level. And boss, tell me, what do you think needs to be done? Which side of this graph would you find yourself in? Would you be the manager who quickly jumps in and says, yes, this is a real challenge. This is something as an organization that we really need to look at. And let me tell you what needs to be done. And do you quickly dive in? Or would you be someone who sits back for a moment and says, all right, this is a real challenge. This is something that we really need to look at. And let me ask you, what do you think we need to do? So if we did a quick check, and this is just for each of us to just take a pause and ask ourselves, which side would we find ourselves leaning towards? Would we be the ones who would quickly jump in because we like the action, we do have the answer, and we do have the experience? Or would we be the one who move into the ask continuum and have a meaningful dialogue with the person sitting in front of us and ask their opinion? What would you do? It's very tempting for most of us because we probably have more experience and more years behind us than the person sitting in front of us. But the best talker is rarely the one who comes up with the best ideas. And in being able to listen and in being able to ask, there may be something that we will get as new input, as a completely intelligent idea, or something which is closer to the ground, which we may not be aware of being the manager. The trouble is that most of us as managers have a tendency to rely on one side of the continuum, right? So either we are on the tell side of the continuum, where we are on the I know, let me tell you, and I'll tell you how to do it, and we just follow the instructions the way that it needs to be done. We might find ourselves somewhere in the middle, a little bit less directive, a little bit more guidance, but still the overall control remains with me. There is some listening and there is some agreement. Or we might find ourselves pushing the person in front of us to generate their own solutions, pushing the person to come up with something that's new, innovative, and in a coactive way, arrive at what might be the challenge. What keeps us on the tail side, what ails us as managers is something like this. We might be folks who have ideas and lots of them, and we would like to share the idea as soon as we have it. And the solution needs to be acted upon, done, completed as soon as possible. We might find ourselves coming from an orientation of too much responsibility for problem solving. So before I have everybody's opinion on board, before I have everybody's say in the mix, I fill in the awkward silences, I go with what needs to be done, and I'm the hero. I'm the one who's going to save the situation. And here you go, this is what we need to do. And we have a third kind of a manager who kind of stays in the tell spectrum, and is somebody who's likely to want to control the situation, control the conversation, and not knowing even for a moment is causing them anxiety. And very often, not using coaching, the barrier or the big barrier that comes in the way of managers being able to deploy coaching as a leadership style is really the anxiety of losing control, or really the perception that if I don't solve it, if I don't speak up, if I don't save it, I don't know what's going to happen. And this not knowing is what causes the anxiety for managers. So I'm going to stop sharing a moment over here, and maybe any quick input or reflections that anybody has, we'd be happy to have a quick chat before we move on to look at what coaching is around as a leadership style. Please unmute yourself and do share your view or your input here.
Yes, Uroshi, this is Vijay.
Hi, Vijay.
Yeah, don't you think, it also depends on the task on hand as well as the timing available? Because if a person comes and asks at the last moment, and if I say that, okay, you come back to me with your thoughts, and then we will have a discussion on that. So it's like, the time also matters. If the question which comes at the beginning of the project, we try to give more of a time to think and come back. And if it is at the later stage, something comes suddenly and we need to be up to the deadlines, I think then it becomes a style of, okay, let me take control of it and let me do it for you sorts.
Yeah. So yeah, one hopes that you have enough time, because surely coaching requires some time. If it's an emergency and if it is something that needs to be done very, very quickly, the chances that you will be able to use coaching is a little bit less, but it's still possible. And when we talk about the 3 steps of coaching, we'll probably share how. However, if it's an emergency and it needs to be done very quickly, you probably want to use a different style of leading at that time.
I have a quick point to add, and I'm actually provoking you that whenever we talk about coaching, why we always bring emergency? And this is a common thing that we see with leaders. Whenever we talk about coaching, an emergency comes, and it's almost like in a way telling that we are permanently running the business as emergency. Or there are other moments, when Mike, very senior coach, wrote a comment to one-to-one that it depends on my style also. Am I directive, or what's my general style? So that's just a thought for all of us, and we'll come back to it. Yeah.
One more point, Shashi here. Would it also depend on the recipient, the experience of the recipient, or where he or she is? If he or she is new to the business or new to the arena, in that case, you might want to get into a much more of a tell mode rather than an ask mode.
Yeah, I think if we're dealing with folks who've worked with you and they've established their credibility and trust, then it's far easier to use coaching as a leadership style. If there's somebody new to the job or new to the organization, you might want to wait till you put the ball more in their court.
May I? Ashish Ghai here.
Hey, Ashish.
Can you hear me? Yeah. See, when you're talking about, we are not talking about coaching. We're talking about coaching as a leadership style, irrespective of emergency, irrespective of time duration, irrespective of what decision they need to take. You know, we can always make him reflect, and maybe he's talking about decision I would have otherwise told him. So he may come out with the same option which otherwise you would have told him. I think it is possible in emergency situation also.
Yes, yes. And hopefully we'll see through the 3-step process that we're going to share with you. A very simple framework actually. And you probably see that it's always a chance that you can give the conversation a coaching tilt, even if the employee is new, or it's somebody that you've encountered for the first time, or even if it's a quick fix that you're working towards.
I have one quick question, Urvashi. So is it more like telling versus asking where one is right and the other is wrong? Because that's what it's looking like, because we want to be inclined towards asking because that's what we think is the most ideal thing to do as a coach. But is it like a fight between the two actions?
It is a bit of a fight, isn't it? And the ogre that comes up is the advice ogre, which comes in the way from us between telling and asking. So it is a fight, and I think all of us who would like to apply coaching as a leadership style will find that this is the one demon that we really need to deal with. There is space for telling, there is space for asking, and which one are you relying on more is probably the question to ask. And which one is likely to give you more results? Is the telling likely to give you more results, or is the asking likely to give you more results? Because when you're truly partnering as you would in coaching, you're getting a very empowered employee. You're getting somebody who's motivated to complete the challenge that they are presenting to you. You're getting somebody who feels acknowledged for their opinion being taken on board. And the way that they will deliver, because they have made the commitment, is very different than somebody who's simply following your instructions. So that's really the gain we have when we enter into the ask continuum versus when we get into the tell continuum. So I'm going to go back and just look at what is the being of coaching that we would like to look at. Just a quick check that we can see the slides.
Yes.
Yeah, so very provocative statements out there, but borrowed from Michael Bungay Stayner, and a beautiful book that he's talked about, The Advice Trap. What he's talking about is the being of coaching and what is the presence that the coach needs to enter with. If you're a manager who's using a coaching style, what is the presence that you are bringing to this conversation? And the first one is saying be lazy, which means don't tell, step back, maybe spend some time listening, take a pause, really figure out what is the issue at hand. And very often you'll find that the challenge that people are coming in with is not the challenge that really needs solving. So just being a little bit laid back sometimes allows us to unearth what is the real challenge that your team member is coming to discuss with you. The second one is curiosity. And I love this one because here you are really going deeper. You are examining the same challenge from many different options. You might ask the person, what have you tried already? What do you think is not going to work? What is something new that we can try to meet this challenge? Who do you think can support you in meeting this challenge? Do you think we have all the resources? So these are curious questions for which you as a manager actually don't have answers. You're being curious, you're being a little bit open, and you're asking a lot of questions which are going to gather information which may not come our way if we only used the ask spectrum of dealing with managers. And I think at the heart of it all is the being of a coach which talks about trust. It talks about believing that the person in front of me is capable, they are resourceful, they can meet the requirement of the challenge themselves. And all they need from me is a little bit of maybe nudge or structure or resourcefulness. But I trust this team member of mine. And hopefully you're the one who hired them in the first place. You're the one who's grooming them. And you're also trusting that if small mistakes are made along the way, that you're going to get their back. And you're going to give them the opportunity to make small mistakes, not big ones, but you're going to give them the opportunity to make small mistakes, learn from that, and grow into being more efficient and effective professionals. So really, this is at the heart of a coach's mindset. We're not talking about actions. We're talking about the presence. We're talking about the core from which any manager who's entering into a coaching conversation, and this could be a 2-minute conversation that you have, while you're having a cup of coffee or lunch together, or it could be a serious formal conversation that you're having about a real serious business challenge. The presence of the coach is what will enable the conversation to flow in a very, very different way. And being lazy information and a lot more commitment from the person who is sitting in front of us. We love this wordle. It just kind of shares with all of us what is the space, the mind space, the attitude with which folks are moving into being coaching-oriented managers. The word that really hits me is non-judgmental. And that just means that the coach is, at this moment, only taking in information. No conclusion is being reached. That will happen later. But at the first start point, the opinions are welcome. Different ideas are welcome. There's a lot of listening. There's a lot of push to expand the view, to get more and more input, so that you're getting all the information that you possibly could and don't have as of now. And in doing so, you're probably getting information from teams that may hesitate to tell you at other times. Because you're open and because you're non-judgmental, you actually might hear things that you really need to hear, but won't, because people are afraid of what you might say or what the reaction might be. So it's a great way to get in information that you wouldn't normally have gotten from your team member. This is a very formal definition of coaching, but it bears a little bit of looking at. Very often when we talk about coaching, whether it's executive coaching or whether it's team coaching or whether it's managers being coaches, it's unlocking the other person's potential. And here's where the trust comes in, that I trust the other person has the potential. My role as a coach, my role as a manager who is coaching, is basically to unravel and unlock the potential that people inherently have for themselves. And this could be one conversation, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or it could even be a series of conversations that you as a manager might have with your team member. And what makes your coaching conversation effective is if in the way that you are speaking to this person, in the way that you're listening to this person, an emphasis on listening, in the way that you might prod or you might provoke or you may gently nudge this person, you're actually expanding for them their own out new things, new ideas. You might be giving them feedback about their behavior. You might be actually coaching a person who seems to be too aggressive, and you might be giving them an opportunity to reflect on how this aggressive behavior might be impacting the future for this person in the organization. And also as a coach and as a manager who would be using this conversation, you would also enable progress for the employee. And probably this is what makes coaching most effective, because the ball is in the other person's court, the accountability is in the other person's court, and you see people making progress and growing in their careers by leaps and bounds. So this is a very simple coaching framework that we would like to share with you, just 3 steps. But this is the secret And this is as much of a formula, if you would want to put it that way, that we would like to share with you. So in a coaching conversation, the first thing that you would do with your team member is establish what are you really talking about. And you may take some time to arrive at the real goal, because the presenting challenge that the team members come to you with may not be the one that is the one that they want to discuss. So what are we really talking about? What do you think we need to solve at the end of this coaching discussion? What's the impact that we want to see? You also establish in the first phase of that conversation that what is it that makes talking about this problem important, because that's what gives credence to the whole conversation. So it's important for you to look at the feedback that you have got from all your other team members that you're aggressive. Why do you think so? And the person for themselves needs to acknowledge that, yes, this is an area I want to focus on. This is a behavior that's a derailer for me. I'm looking for growth within the organization, and I want to see myself be called as a mature and an emotionally stable leader. So this is an area that I would like to look at. So in the goal setting, you're already establishing the boundaries of the area that you would like to discuss, and you would take the time to delayer and figure out what is the real issue that we are trying to solve, because very often the presenting challenge may not be the one that you really want to uncover. Once you've got your goal for your coaching conversation clear, the second phase is about listening. And here, if you're a manager or if you're a coach, you are now being lazy, being curious. You are asking the person to explore for themselves, whether it's a behavioral challenge that they're dealing with, whether it's an organizational challenge that they're dealing with. Here's where your questions, open-ended, empowering, reflective, curious, are going to help the person to discover what they might like to do about the challenge or the behavior that they are talking about. Yeah, and this is the phase where you might take a little bit more time, where it may go a little bit up and down. And here's the time where you might want to give your suggestion as well and say, okay, you're dealing with this challenge. If I was you, I might like to solve it in this way, but I would leave it to you to finally decide what you would like to do with this suggestion of mine. So if there are 3 suggestions on the table, 1 is yours and 2 is from your team member, all 3 carry equal weightage, and the team member gets to choose the suggestion that they would like to go ahead with. The third part is talking about getting whatever has been decided in the discussion onto the real world and getting acted upon. So here, you and your team member would reach an agreement. And this is what makes coaching effective. That not only are you spending the time to discover and delayer and give power back to the person who's in front of you, but you're also coming to shared commitments and shared agreements in the action planning phase. So you would reach agreement on what is the commitment that the person makes. What behavioral change are you likely to see? What are the resources that they're going to deploy behind the challenge that the organization faces? How would you know that the person's on track? Put in a review metric into place, and you offer your support and your help wherever the need might be. So very simple 3-step process for any manager who is looking to tilt conversations towards coaching. You start with agreeing with the team member, what is it that you're really trying to work on? You spend time, you are more curious, you're more open, you're coming in with trust, and you have a discussion on what all possibilities are there. And in the third step, you move towards an agreement on the actions that you would see. You might put timeframes into place, you might put resources into place, you might put milestones into place. And here you may say that if it doesn't go till 80% after you have put in your input, I will step in at this point. So you've given the opportunity and you've retained a little bit of control in your own hand if the need may be. So goal setting, discussion, and action planning, a very simple framework that all managers who would like to practice coaching can apply to their conversations. And probably not just managers. I think this is a framework that we can use anywhere, wherever we might be. I try it with my children too, my child too. So it's something that I find is simple enough and easy enough to apply. In a nutshell, you are asking the question and you're silent after that. Silence is a big part of listening because you're giving reflective time. You're giving people space to think about the challenge that they have brought to you. You're giving people time to think about the resources they might need from you. They may be hesitant at first, so you're present, listen and actually listen to the answer, not just listen to give a very quick repartee, but actually listen to what they're saying. And so people know that they've been heard and they've been acknowledged. You're also spending the time to acknowledge the answer, to reach the agreement, and to close the conversation effectively, to say, hey, heard you, great ideas from you, I agree with this, we agree on these timelines, and this is the review mechanism that we're going to go in with. Yeah. So here's coaching in a nutshell, and it does require a very different presence from us as coaches or as managers. It does require switching off, the need to jump in or the tendency to jump in. It means that we're not saving and we're not telling and we're not controlling, but we are offering a chance for people to grow, maybe make some mistakes along the way, but we got their back. And we've got milestones along the way to tell us that, hey, this much is okay as a risk, and this is the amount of risk that I'm not willing to take at an organizational level. And what you will see if very simple processes are followed, that coaching will really yield very, very tremendous results with you. And this lovely quote from Steve Jobs, I think, sums it up. It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so that they can tell us what to do. So hopefully this is the kind of folks we all have in our teams, and we really can step out of the way and let them get on with it, support them, challenge them, empower them, and make them progress more in their careers. You'd be surprised to know, maybe some of you know this book already. This is a wonderful book called $1 Trillion Coach, written about a very little known coach called Bill Campbell. And the reason he wasn't very well known is because Bill wanted it that way. When Bill died is when this book actually could get written, and you can see it's got some really popular names in there. You've got Eric Schmidt as one of the authors, Alan Eagler as well. When they went in for Bill's funeral, they found that sitting in the room were executives from Google, senior executives from Intuit, senior executives from Apple, and senior executives from HP. And they looked around at the funeral room of Bill Campbell and said, wow, this one man, Bill Campbell, coached people whose net worth is over $1 trillion. So this book is about Bill Campbell and all the work that he did in all of these organizations at Google, Apple, Intuit, and HP. And what he would do really is, work with leaders to overcome their hurdles, sometimes manage their own egos, sometimes work with teams, sometimes prepare a nervous leader on how they want to work with the boardroom. And because he was present is how these organizations were able to reach the success, the teamness, the energy that was being expended to actually solve the problem and not clash with people. A lot of the credit has been acknowledged and given to Bill Campbell. So here's a lovely read for those of us who might still have some skepticism around, does coaching work as a leadership style or not? Our belief really, and that's the reason that we are even running this webinar and sharing a little bit with you, is that we've seen coaching really work wonderfully, transform the cultures of teams, transform the culture of organizations, build very meaningful relationships when coaching is practiced. And we don't have to be perfect at it. Just making the attempt and coming in with the trust and the openness is good enough for all of us to just practice in whichever little way that we can. We'll surely see the results from using this little bit of presence that we can bring into our managerial styles. Yeah, so that's all from us, and we'll stop a moment to take in reflections, questions, observations, and any experiences that you might like to share with us.
Hey Urvashi, this is Soumya.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for this workshop. I just had a quick question around a particular aspect. Very often, the developmental aspect for my team member conflicts with the immediate need in the role, especially when we are talking about the manager being the coach. How does this conflict of interest get handled?
So you're saying you don't have the time to work on the development?
No, I'm saying I need the person to do something right now. There are a lot of priorities that need to be done, but for the person to develop, you need to give them the right amount of time to go through the entire process, which might not be something that I have. So how do I resolve that?
Yeah. Shubha, you want to get that?
Can you ask me really what you want to ask? See if there is another question below the question.
Can you not coach me on a public forum?
I'm not coaching you. I'm just trying to show this is sometimes the real question. So there are times when my need and my team members' need do not align, and that's why in organization, even I wrote it in the chat box, is in organization the goal has to be co-owned by the manager as well as the team member, and sometimes that itself requires a coaching conversation. That why do you think this goal is important? And getting the buy-in, because we are all adults, and till the time we agree, it doesn't happen. So maybe that coaching is another small coaching conversation to explain why this goal is important and why it is important for your team member to step in and work together. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah. And I think as a manager, you hold in what you think you cannot. Agreement from what, and you can step into a mentoring role rather than a coaching role at that moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Urvashi.
Thank you. Pankaj, you raised your hand. So is there something that you would like to share?
No, actually, I raised my hand in between when you were talking about, regarding the trust building.
Pankaj, your voice is breaking.
Yes, a little faintly, but yes.
Yeah. So I raised my hand at that point of time when you were talking about the way forward also when the curious to see the opportunity. So it's all about navigating people and to find out and exploring opportunity and how you can help them to understand about their own potential and the realization. Yeah, this is just I wanted to share at that point of time. Thank you.
Thanks, Pankaj.
Yeah.
Thanks. And others, please, happy to hear your own experience and anything that you got provoked by, any thoughts that come to you.
Urvashi, can I share something?
Please.
No, I just thought that as an entrepreneur and as someone who discovered coaching much later, one of the things that I recognize is that when you try to lead with a coaching mindset, it in the short term puts a lot more pressure on you in terms of even a simple thing. For example, my earlier method of following up and following through put the pressure back on my subordinates because they had to come back. But now the pressure is on me because I'm not putting that kind of fear or pressure on my subordinate. And then I need to gear up and become much better at follow up and follow through if I want my coaching style to succeed. So it needs to, the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of change has to happen individually if this has to work at a leadership style level.
Yeah, agree. And I think coaching needs a little bit of effort upfront. You know, the work and the muscle building that all of us, when we're managing people, need to put in is upfront.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And it begins to yield results very soon down the line, but that patience is required between putting in the effort to coach and getting the results from using coaching as a style of leadership. Thanks, Ajay. Thank you for sharing that.
Ashish Ghai here. May I share my experience?
Please, Ashish.
Yeah. See, I like this question, which came, I'm forgetting her name now. Developmental effects when they conflict with the immediate priority or the needs.
Yeah, Soumya.
Soumya, yeah. Thanks for asking this. This provokes a lot of good thoughts. See, by and large, developmental aspects have been co-owned and co-arrived at already. And we are very well aware. But by and large, immediate priorities are in nature that they need to be addressed. So I would call it as a task rather than a coaching goal. So those tasks, we can act like manager. We need not be always a coach. Predominant style could be coaching, but at times we need to talk like a manager also. That's why I say ask, tell. So mostly we'll be asking, but sometimes it is okay. It's okay. So I think at different times we need to wear different hats, but predominantly your style is coaching. But sometimes, you need to have task orientation because you are a manager as well, and manager coaching is difficult. Right?
Yeah, absolutely, Ashish. You could be a mentor because it's something completely new. You could be somebody who's just getting a task executed in that one moment. But we hope really that the balance is much more in favor of coaching. And I think we all have the wisdom to apply the style which is most appropriate. If we build our muscles in every leadership style well enough, I think it also brings us the wisdom to use the one which is relevant for that moment and for the person who's in front of us. Great, Ashish. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
Hi, Urvashi. Pavitra here. Am I audible?
Yes, Pavitra. Go ahead.
Yeah. So thanks for the wonderful session. And this is the question I have. So as leaders, when we coach our team members, there are times where their personal disputes or their feelings and emotions which are related to their personal life can coincide or it can come in the way of the professional coaching that we are doing at work or because all of these feelings are wired around each other. So how do we draw a demarcation as a manager saying that part is none of my business and I'm going to coach you only on these?
So now you'll probably hear a very different answer from us that, when you're talking to a person, you're actually talking to the whole person. Mm-hmm. So it's really going to be difficult to separate out personal from professional. If it's too private to share, you may, give the person the right to share or not share. But as a manager who's also looking after the effectiveness of the person in front of you, you can share your observation that I see that something happening at home is coming in the way of your succeeding at work or doing something X at work. And would you like to get some support in it? And you're leaving the ball back in the person's court. But when the person's in front of you, you really are dealing with the whole person, and it is difficult to separate out the parts.
Yeah, that's correct. So my question was, should we even address that part at all, even when they are open to express it?
If they are open to express it, yes.
Okay.
Definitely. And again, this takes a little bit from us as well, So as a manager, I would assure confidentiality. I would assure that, nothing leaves this room, and I would enable the person in whatever support they seek from me.
All right. Thanks.
So I think we are at the last moment of time, and we'll probably just take this opportunity to say thank you for all of you. So many friends over here. Really, really heartening to see all of us here together. Thank you so much for being present. I hope this was something that got us thinking a little bit. We are big and firm believers in coaching as a style of working with others. So if you have any questions, please do write into us. Our email IDs are available to you. We would be happy to pick up the phone or share an email, any which way that you would like to reach out. So thanks everybody. Great evening and a happy weekend to all of you. Cheers. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Suha, Ranjini, and Urvashi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Urvashi. It was a nice session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice session. Huh?
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashish. Great to have your weigh-ins.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye bye.
Ciao. Shashi, here.
Bye.
Hey. बॉम्बे अच्छा लग रहा है.
बॉम्बे हमेशा से अच्छा लग रहा था.
Shauli, we don't hear you. We know you're speaking, but we don't hear you. All children allowed.
Hi.
Hi, Nitya.
Nitya finally spoke.
Yeah.
Hi, Thomas. Good to see you. Good to see you there.
Hi, Urvashi. Good to see you. Very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Suha, why are you serious? थोड़ा हंसिए.
Hey, Dr. Bandana, you can show your video now.
Coming?
Hello? You're still there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah, I did it. What happened to my video? I got it. It should come. Anyway, here I am. Well done. It was very good. Good learning experience.
Thank you. And Vinay, you're here with us. Chirudeep, hi.
So, Urvashi, I think Deepak had a question which he had filled in the Google form. If he's online, we could probably take that question now if he's interested.
We'll catch Deepak on the phone, don't worry.
Yeah.
Deepak's question was interesting. What do you do when people think that they're coaching, but they're actually not coaching? And Deepak, there's an interesting data. 78%, when managers coach, they think that they're at a 78 percentile, while if you ask their team, they're at a 39 percentile. So there is a gap, and that's where probably the coach training is more required for managers. So that was one question I remember which Deepak posed in the Google form.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll log off now. And Ranjini, thank you so much for your support. It was really cool to have you as a backend and as a moderator and everything else in between. So
yeah, more like part-time moderator. Shubho took the yeah. Thank you for that. Cool. So let's get connected offline.
Yeah.
Yeah.